Welcome to Mental Health Monday. This week, we'll be talking about the rescuer mindset or rescuer personality. And so the topic this week is savior to helper. And when it comes to a rescuer, they're oftentimes called by a lot of different names. So I've heard a martyr, I've heard savior, I've heard fixer, and I've heard a white knight. So if you've oftentimes heard someone referred to as having a savior complex, then typically most likely I would say that that person is a rescuer. If not all the time, then most of the time. So all these names, they tend to project the need or the urge to protect or save someone from themselves or their situation. But what if the person you have convinced yourself need your help really doesn't need your help or really doesn't want your help? The problem is the rescuer, it's really difficult for a rescuer to be able to understand and to be able to even accept that the person doesn't want their help. Most times they're not able to accept this. They may pretend to respect it. However, it's really hard for them to accept it, because for them, it will be seen as an element of failure, something that they have failed at. So they will take it personal. And so this is why most times for rescuers, it's really overwhelming for them not to, they have this overwhelming need not to jump in and help others. And sometimes this overwhelming need can become an obsession. So some traits of someone who we would consider a rescuer. So the first one is their needs are secondary, meaning that oftentimes, if not always, they put the needs of others over their own. This could be because of how they were raised. This could be also because it's connected to their identity and self-worth and purpose. And in a big way, it could also be connected to the need for validation and affirmation. Oftentimes, we will find people in our lives who have different ways of getting affirmation or validation from other people. So some people, for them, it's more external, meaning it's the things they do, it's what people say, it's feedback from people, it's people's opinion of themselves and of things that they've done. For other people, it's all internal. All they care about is what they think and what they feel about themselves, their actions, and they may not care so much about what other people think. And I think a proper balance would be to have both. I think it's really important for someone to have an healthy esteem that their opinion of themselves and their beliefs about themselves and their abilities and qualities and values are important, as well as any kind of affirmation or feedback that they may get from other people in their environment. The thing with a rescuer, for them, they're all consumed by the external, by the outside. So it's more about other people's validation of them. So imagine if they do something to help someone, or someone says, I really appreciate you, you're always there for me, I can really depend on you, I can really count on you, then somehow in that person, it now takes them from questioning their own worth and their own abilities and who they are as a person to feeling good about themselves. And so sometimes that can actually cause the rescuer to put their needs secondary. One of the downside for that is that they oftentimes exhaust themselves in taking care of other people, or they may feel rejected if their help is not accepted, but also if they're not able to help the person the way they want to. So in addition to the first one, which is rescuers tend to put themselves secondary, a second one is they tend to become really obsessive and persistent. So rescuers, they're often really relentless in offering their help, even when the other person doesn't need their help. Now, the thing about help is that it can either be about walking with the person and assisting the person versus doing it for them. And so I think this is one of the traps that rescuers often find themselves in, is that they're not able, the obsession and in wanting to help someone so much that sometimes their thinking actually are very skewed. It becomes really illogical, and to the point that they convince themselves of something that may not be there. And sometimes it can come with an attitude of, I know best, right? I know what's best for you. I know what's the best thing to do. And so there could be a bit of an ego also involved as well, in thinking that they have the ultimate solution to fix the person's need. And what that means is, rather than even talking to the person that they're helping, trying to get a really good image and a good idea of what the person's struggle is or what the person need help with, they may hear just a smidget of what the person is struggling with, and all of a sudden they are solution focused. So really, it's very much a one-way relationship in wanting to help that person versus it being more of a dialogue and helping that person. So it's not uncommon for rescuers to kind of take over and take charge. A third characteristic or trait of a rescuer is that rescuers tend to create codependency. And if you remember in Pastor's sermon on experiencing restoration, the burden transfer, I think it was November 15th, his definition of codependency is a behavioral condition in a relationship where one person enables another person's addiction, poor mental health, immaturity, underachievement, or irresponsibility. And so among the core characteristic of codependency is an excessive reliance on other people for approval and a sense of identity. And when it comes to rescuer mindset or personality, their identity is very much connected and grounded in other people's self-reliance on them. And so another trait that you would find is that rescuers oftentimes create that codependency. Sometimes they're not even aware of it, and other times they are. And it's because they want other people to need them, and they will go from one person to another person, asking for help, asking to help someone, and actually seek someone who may want their help. So for rescuers, they are classically codependent and enablers. And imagine someone who has a victim mindset. So they are very attracted to victim mindset. It's not as if they go looking for them. Somehow those are just the people that are drawn to them or that they're drawn to. And so they need victims to help. And they often can't allow the victim to succeed or get better because it's so connected to their identity. If that person gets better, rather than celebrating that person and encouraging them and really being committed to really be at their back, then this person sees it as they failed and a loss. And so they will definitely take that personal. And sometimes they may even feel shameful, or even feel just a sense of guilt that they're not able to rescue them or that that person doesn't need them anymore. So then how does someone goes from being a rescuer or a savior to being a helper? And so there are many steps to be able to do this, but there are two steps that I think are really, really important. And so the first one is to set boundaries. And so it's about learning to say no. And the interesting thing is not only learning to say no to other people, but actually learning to say no to yourself. Whatever this need is, there is a wound, there is something that you've experienced, something that you've witnessed, something that you've interpreted maybe in a wrong way, something, a messaging that someone has been telling you, maybe for most of your life, that somehow something has led you to believe that it's not okay to say no, that you absolutely have to be selfless all the time. And so not being able to say no to yourself will really continue this pattern of putting yourself secondary and not prioritizing your need. And so what that means is that it's going to be hard for you to be able to understand and see when you're being burned out, to see when fixing others, not even helping, when fixing others and saving others has become so burdensome and so heavy that it's actually is leaving you feel rejected, leaving you feel burned out, leaving you feel really overwhelmed. It is not giving you that joy that you thought that you think you would get from helping others. And so it's really clear to understand in setting boundary is what it is that you need. And are you able to say no to yourself, and are you able to say no to the other person? And if you think about it, if you're always rescuing someone, in a way that is you saying that you don't trust that other person to care for themselves, you don't trust that person's abilities, you don't trust that person's belief, right? And in a way, by enabling that, you're actually robbing that person of the opportunities and to grow from their mistake, to learn to fall, and to be able to pick themselves up with other people's support, not with someone doing it for them. And so not setting boundaries is really not just about you. It's also about what is it that you are denying that other person from doing. And after a while, you're always the worker. So when are you going to step out of that role of doing for other people and actually teaching people and helping people to start doing things for themselves? So the second one is refuse to carry burdens. And this is really connected as well to Pastor's sermon a couple of weeks ago. And if you remember the sermon, one of the questions that Pastor asked was, if you are busy carrying the burden of others, who's carrying your burden? Right? Have you ever asked yourself, why don't you feel joy or contentment when you help others? Could it be because you went from wanting to help others grow, to nurture someone, to believing that somehow along the way, believing that you need to be the helper, you need to actually save them from themselves and fix them? Do you know when you went from wanting to help to feeling that you need to help someone? When did that shift happen? And that may be something that you need to really take some time to reflect and think about. Could it be that you are so busy saving and doing things for other people rather than helping them, which is assisting them and walking with them? So if you remember Pastor talk about that, when you carry the burden of others, you're truly denying and taking away that person's ability to rely on God for help. And for me, it means that if you're choosing to carry that other person's burden, you're saying in a way that person doesn't need God. The only person that person needs is you, because you know best. In essence, you're saying that you know more than God, and you can carry other people's burden, and you can carry your burdens better than God, right? So if you are carrying those burdens and those load of other people, instead of helping them by praying for them and walking with them, in a way, you're not only carrying their burden, but you're also carrying your burden. And in essence, you're choosing to carry the burden rather than refusing to carry the burdens. So if you see yourself as playing, as fitting into the rescuer or savior mindset, this is a time to give all your worries and cares to God, especially if these wounds and these worries are causing you to carry not only your burdens, but the burdens of others. If you see yourself as a rescuer, it's not time to feel guilty or feel shameful of your actions. It really is time to take a stand and to allow God and others around you to help to carry your burdens. It is really time for you to, I believe, truly take some time and try to figure out what it is in you. What is that need that carrying the burden of others and trying to save others and being the white knight, being perceived as the white knight, as someone's savior? What is that need that is trying to fill? Because if you've been in this pattern and you've had this mindset for a long time, then whatever it is that you're trying to feed it with externally is really not being fed. And so I would really encourage you just to take some time to understand what is that need that's being filled. And maybe you're looking in the wrong place. Maybe rather than trying to fix others, it's time to refuse to carry those burdens, those wounds, those hurt that you're trying to fill, and really give them to God. And that way, He can help and walk you through those. So think on that for this week. And I hope that this has been encouraging to you. It's really just been helping you to just kind of take a look at yourself or look at other people around you, and just to have more awareness and more understanding about maybe things that you're struggling with. And so with that, I bid everyone a beautiful week, and I wish everyone and pray for everyone to have wonderful mental health experiences over the next couple weeks. Take care.